If a president started acting like the kings that they were used to, okay, they wanted an orderly procedure to allow us, the people, to fix that situation. It's called impeachment. Do not blanch before it. It's a very orderly procedure. They didn't want another revolution. One was quite enough, thank you very much. And they didn't want military juntas replacing our government. And so it was all very, I can imagine that they took a lot of pains to put that in 6 times, and that was my dream. Now, what's the major offense? The major offense is what Nuremberg called a war of aggression. Pure and simple, okay? And the way Nuremberg defined that was this way. To initiate a war of aggression is the supreme international crime, differing from other war crimes only insofar as it contains the accumulated evil of the whole. Accumulated evil of the whole. What could that be, folks? Think torture, maybe? Think kidnapping? Think putting people in black holes and not telling the Red Cross or their own or their families? Think about all those accumulated evils, and that's where we are today, folks. That's where we are. Patrick Henry said this about torture. He said that that should be left to the old world, because the old world was the world of the rack and the screws, right? Yeah. And so, you know, they felt really strongly about this, and they wrote this, and they believed it. I think we have a certain obligation, a certain duty to measure up when the chips are down. Now, one of the most interesting things is, and we have the creator of the Downing Street website, so forth, right here, is that the Downing Street memoranda, these British documents vouched for as authentic by the British government, are documentary proof that our president started a war of aggression and falsified the intelligence to, quote, justify it, end quote. It's right there. The intelligence and facts were being fixed around the policy. It doesn't get any clearer than that, folks. Violation of U.S. law, the UN treaty, which is the supreme law of the land. And I think Judge has exactly right, the definition for high crime, something that threatens the state and the Constitution, and something that doesn't, where the president does not make sure that the laws of the land are faithfully executed. Now, I would like to add a new charge here. George Washington was a Virginian, like me. My children have just persuaded me I'm a Virginian. Four of the 5 were born here, and 4 of the 5 went through the University of Virginia. They all talk a little funny, but they think I talk funny because I'm from New York. Anyhow, George Washington, in his farewell address, had an amazingly prescient warning to avoid certain dangers in foreign policy. This is what he said: "Observe good faith and justice toward all nations. Nothing is more essential than to avoid permanent antipathy to particular nations and passionate attachments to other nations." Either antipathy or attachment can lead a country astray. Antipathy in one nation against another disposes each more readily to offer insult and injury. So, likewise, a passionate attachment of one nation for another produces a variety of evils. Sympathy for the favored nation facilitates the illusion of an imaginary common interest in cases where no real common interest exists, and it infuses into one nation the enmities of the other, and it betrays the former nation into participation in the quarrels and the wars of the latter without justification. It leads also to concessions to the favored nation of privileges denied to others, and so excites jealousy, ill will, and a disposition to retaliate in the parties from whom equal privileges are withheld. And it gives to the citizens who devote themselves to the favored nation think Paul Wolfowitz, think Richard Pearl, think Douglas Feith. It gives to citizens who devote themselves to the favored nation the opportunity to betray or sacrifice the interests of their own country. Now, if one were to set out with the specific objective of creating a foreign policy in the Middle East, designed to invalidate all those warnings by George Washington, one could not possibly do any better than the policies that we have adopted over the last 6 years. Our current policies are that. Brent Scowcroft, who was National Security Advisor to the first George Bush president, said this right before he was fired. He had been the chair of the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board under George W. Bush, a very prestigious position where you are in line for the most sensitive information. And he said this, Scowcroft, being a very discreet person, not given to making blunders with the press, he said that Ariel Sharon has our president wrapped around his little finger. He said, Ariel Sharon has our president mesmerized. Now that didn't get much press play, surprise, surprise. But that was very telling to me because Scowcroft is a very serious person. And when he went to the Financial Times and told them that, knowing full well it would get published, that speaks to me loudly, okay? So, putting the interests of one country or one company, Halliburton, before one's own country. High crime, folks. I think that's a high crime. Some might call it treason. Just to finish up here, I'd like to, and I think we are sort of tonight applying the Noah principle. Anybody know what the Noah principle is? No more awards for predicting rain, awards only for building arks. We've got to build some arks, folks, and I think we're on the right track. I was privileged to be present, together with Elizabeth Holtzman and the members of the House Judiciary Committee, on the afternoon that they voted the first articles of impeachment against Richard Milhouse Nixon. I had to wait for 4 hours around in a line that went 3 blocks around, but it was a very, very poignant experience to see our system working. Okay, I told Elizabeth that when we were speaking together. It was just incredibly moving. It showed that these fellows that put impeachment in our Constitution 6 times knew what they were talking about. All it took was guts. And as has already been mentioned, it took guts by Republicans as well as Democrats. Goldwater descended upon the president. Whatever you think of Goldwater, he had some integrity. And he said, Mr. President, it's over. It's over. You got to go because we're going to impeach you if you don't. Okay? Now, who do we have? John Boehner going to do that? Or who's the guy, Trent Lott, going to do that? You know, give me a break. It's up to us, folks. It's up to us. And so I think we need to just kind of recognize that and out of respect for the men and women who crafted this document and this country, out of respect for ourselves, out of respect for our children, we have to do everything we can to show that this president should be impeached. I'll finish with a little quote from Mr. Jefferson, the way they refer to him down there at the University of Virginia. Quote, when once a republic is corrupted, there is no possibility of remedying any of the growing evils but by removing the corruption. Every other corrective is either useless or a new evil. Thank you.